Ignoring immigration laws for nearly 2 decades has helped result in approximately 11 million people in the United States without documentation. In fact, 40 to 42% of undocumented individuals in the nation were once here legally, but overstayed their visas. The 1986 bill has proven unworkable and too easily avoidable. We must reform immigration laws, and we must do so in a step-by-step process with deliberation and debate surrounding each piece of reform. And we must begin with border security and interior enforcement. We cannot simply put reform to the side because it is unworkable or the political will is simply not present to make it work. We have a chance to prove to the American people that the federal government can be trusted to build a long-term and common-sense system. It has been said by many that the United States is a nation of immigrants, and I imagine that if I was not blessed to be born in this country, I would have done everything I could to be in this country. But we're also a nation of laws. Our current immigration laws have proven inadequate and are not being enforced. If a law is not enforced or it is ignored, then we no longer remain a nation of laws, and the law becomes worth little more than the bill paper that it is written on. Congress must move forward by building a new system of immigration laws that will stand strong and secure, but still allow a workable system for people that want to be part of this great nation and a healthy economy to have the opportunity to do so. I urge the House to be guided by law and fairness during this process, and fair as well to those currently waiting in the legal process to become citizens. Any immigration reform must first begin with border security and interior enforcement as a top priority. And I will not support reform that fails to include strong security enforcement measures. Not only do these measures need to exist, but there must be confirmation from a credible outside entity that these measures have been satisfied and implemented. No one should be able to simply choose not to enforce the law or waive it through administrative process. Once we have secured our borders and are enforcing the law and guaranteed these measures are working, may we look to other reforms. With these principles setting the framework, we are here to discuss potential reform for the very young, the children who were brought illegally into this country as minors. These are the children and young adults that, for all intents and purposes, are culturally American. These are the children that grew up in the United States and go to school with our children and grandchildren, with my daughter. This is an issue of fairness, law, and compassion. Many of these children know no other nation except for the United States. Their parents made a decision to enter the country illegally, and our broken system did nothing to prevent it. They deserve to be afforded some form that recognizes that they are here through no fault of their own. It was not their decision to not follow the law. I believe members across the aisle can unite and agree that providing them with some sort of immigration relief is the fair thing to do. But this must be part of a step-by-step reform package. The legislation addressing these young individuals should not provide them with a treatment that is unfair to those already following the legal process. Any legislation addressing these children would need to be solely for the benefit of the child and no one else. It cannot elicit chain migration. During the process, we must find the appropriate balance. And while these children remain innocent, we cannot reward those family members who have broken the law. And I have a story that I would like to share with the committee. In 2005, I had just been appointed to the Colorado State Legislature, and I held one of my first town meetings on the Eastern Plains in a small farm town. The government teacher of the local high school brought the government class, the entire class, to attend the meeting. There weren't many of them. But during the question and answer period of the meeting, a young girl stood up and introduced herself, proudly stating that she was graduating first in her class, the valedictorian of her senior class, and she'd gone to school with those same classmates since her kindergarten year, K through 12. She stood up and said she was brought in this country when she was only a few months old, brought into the country illegally. And she asked this question, I will never forget. Do you support in-state tuition for illegal aliens? She asked. I told her that I did not, because allowing passage of such a policy was avoiding the real problem. It was failing to address the overall need for immigration reform, and that we can't start with in-state tuition because we have to pursue meaningful immigration reform first to fix the broken nature of our process before anything else can happen. About a month ago, I was in the same small town on the Eastern Plains, and I ran into this young girl once again, the same girl, the valedictorian of her high school, waiting tables. 8 years later, we talked once again about the need for immigration reform. 8 years later, nothing has happened. This time, Congress cannot just talk about immigration reform. Congress must act. While there will be strong disagreement about what to do, how to proceed, and what the end policy will ultimately look like, we simply cannot do nothing. We must act, and I believe we can do so in a way that 30 years from now, 100 years from now, future generations of this country, both immigrants and non-immigrants, can say that back then they did the right thing, and it's working.